I've got here the Rotring Isograph, which is a technical pen. This is a 0.35 nib size, and this one being the Lamy Safari, and this one is the extra fine nib. Now I'm going to be comparing today the difference between how these pens stipple. The Rotring Isograph being a pen that has nib sizes that go far smaller than what you will get with a fountain pen. The advantage of this is that you can do smaller dots and you can make your stippling look a lot better because the Rotring Isograph is a smaller nib. When you're doing stippling, the more dots you can make, the more realistic that the drawing or whatever it is that you're creating will look. But making so many dots can be time consuming. So if you want something that is a bit more sturdy and can do a lot of dots and is more convenient, that would probably be the fountain pen. And as I said, they're a bit more sturdy than a Rotring Isograph because the nib of this pen is a bit stronger. As a matter of fact, it's a lot stronger than what you're going to get with the Rotring Isograph. This pen here is not a flex nib. It is a standard nib, so when you're drawing with it, there will be no flex in it. As you can see here, the nib is pretty sturdy. There's not really any flex in this pen at all. And as you can see, the pen on the inside of it, you can see where the ink has been filled. I think I touched the tip of the pen, and now I've actually got a little bit of ink here and there from when I touched it there. But I wanted to touch the tip of the pen and to press on it so that you can see that the nib of this doesn't bend at all. Now the Rotring Isograph, which is a technical pen, similar to how microns and other pens like that would be, but the advantage of this is that this pen here is able to be refilled, unlike the other technical pens such as the microns, accurate. So it saves you a lot of money in the long run, because if you do a lot of drawing, you can refill these and you can get different colored ink, red, blue, white, or black ink. You can refill these and you've got plenty of ink to do a lot of drawing. So with this pen here, as you can see, the nib is not as sturdy as the fountain pen. And because of that, if you're doing stippling, you want to be careful not to press as hard, or you will end up bending the small wire on the inside of the pen that is inside of this tiny steel nib here. There is a wire inside of this steel nib here, and that runs up along the length of the pen. As you press down, that presses the wire in and the ink flows out. So if you're stippling with this, make sure you're not pressing hard, or it's likely that you could possibly damage the pen, and if you bend the nib on it, you will have to replace the whole pen. So that is a minor issue with stippling with these, but as I said, the advantage would be that with this pen you can do a lot of tiny dots and you can make things more detailed. So let's go ahead and do a quick comparison of these pens stippling. Up first, I will use the Rotring Isograph. Now when you're drawing with these and doing stippling, you want to try and hold it more upright, and you don't want to hold it at too much of an angle, because with stippling you're constantly pressing down. So you want the ink to flow downward, and you don't want to bend the nib, because if you have the pen held at too much of an angle, you're going to bend the nib of the pen, and you're going to have to replace it. Let's go ahead and show you a little bit of what the stippling looks like with this pen. As you can see here, I'm holding the pen more upright and making my dots. This is the 0.35, so the size of the dot compared to a pen such as the 0.18 is going to be much smaller than this. Now that I've shown you that, let's go ahead and take a look at the Lamy Safari fountain pen. And let's take a quick look and see how the stippling on this works. Now the advantage of this pen is that you can hold it at a very steep angle and you can still get your dots, unlike the Rotring Isograph. This one does let a lot more ink out, being that the nib is larger than the Rotring Isograph, but it is much more sturdy. And because of that, you're actually able to stipple a lot faster. With the fountain pen, if I press on the paper and hold it down, you can see the ink continues to flow. The advantage of the Rotring Isograph is that if I'm to do the same thing with the pen and hold the pen down onto the paper, you will not get the paper to where it feathers across the paper that much. Here's an example. It tends to stay more in one location rather than spreading out so much. So if you've got really absorbent paper, the fountain pen is going to feather a lot more than the Rotring Isograph. Now remember, do not mix the ink from the fountain pen into the Rotring Isograph, and do not use the Rotring Isograph ink in the fountain pen, or you're going to have some problems with writing. They could clog up, dry up, and you can really ruin the pen. But the advantage of the Rotring Isograph, as I said, is more detail and not as much feathering on the paper. But the disadvantage being that the nib of the pen is a lot more fragile. Lamy Safari advantage. The pen is much more sturdy, the nib, and you can stipple a lot faster, and you can hold these at more of an angle when you're stippling. Disadvantage is a bit more feathering on the paper, and they don't come in as wide of a variety of nib sizes that allow you to do really tiny details. If you wanted a pen that can do more detailed as a fountain pen, there are other kinds that are the Eastern style. The Western style of fountain pens have slightly larger nibs. If you go with the Eastern fountain pens, the nibs on them are a little bit smaller, such as a pen like the JSheetz. So that is a comparison of these two pens. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below if there is anything else you'd like me to review, go over, draw, or anything else. Until then, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.